Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman Show. I've got a fabulous guest today. Her name is Abi Adams. She's a speaker and an emotional and physical liberator, and she's the founder of the House of Movement. Abi, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. What a space. What a
What
space.
a space. I know, I know. Heaven on earth, honey, I think is the word for it.
You know what I mean? Prior to coming on, Alexandra just took me through the most wonderful welcoming, and it just puts it all into perspective of how we are, we rush so much, don't we? And we don't give ourselves the opportunity to truly feel how we are feeling and how that impacts the way we are communicating. And I woke up this morning and I didn't have as much time as what I usually give myself because it's been a really full on weekend, but I gifted myself and gave myself permission to just rest. And so I was playing outside with my daughter. And we was tuning into how we was feeling. And I became aware of being in my inner summer ovulation of how I am more susceptible to how others are feeling because I'm now in that archetype of the great mother. You are wanting to open your wings up and hold everyone. The energy is there, the fuel, the hormones, all of that is there to do that. And so you're more sensitive to others, and that can kind of sometimes negate how you're feeling. But it was just made so much sense of right, I have a greater capacity, but how am I feeling? And how is that communication reverberating out into what I can do? Just like that message just rippling through in how we stepped into this time zone. So thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Abs. Gorgeous. Well, I want to dive straight in. Um, Obviously, the work that you do is incredible, and you have such an immense amount of body awareness, but how that connects us into our spiritual awareness and all aspects of us. Can we talk a little bit about it's 11:11 on my clock as I say this, the alignment. Can we talk a little bit about our rhythms and cycles and what that means for us? Like how do we navigate through our life with our rhythms and cycles?
So when we look, we have a vast amount of beautiful layers of life. We have your circadian rhythm, which is your day. We've got the month, and for those with a womb, that's also your menstrual. And then we have the quarterly, which is our seasons, and then we have the lunar. These are all rhythms that we can tune into that give us wonderful pockets of creativity and energy to do certain things in a space where we are able to communicate that more effectively. But what we have tuned into is just a constant repeat of the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. And we can see how this creates absolute confusion and conflict within ourselves. And as an example, I worked in corporate for a very long time, and I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. And eventually, as I stepped out of that and I stepped into well-being, and I learned how to be a yoga teacher and a masseuse, and I really enjoyed it. But there was always this sense of trying so hard, like, come on, keep going, do this. And nothing ever really hitting the fulfillment button or that my perception of success until I found my bleed at 33. And I married, I had my first child, and I found my bleed, and it made me, it just opened up the understanding of relationship because I was able to relate to myself on a far deeper level. And from that, I realized that relationship with myself was the precursor to all relationships with my husband, with my children, with my work, with ideas. And it has gradually, just expanded outwards into this understanding of such confident communication where there is no fire. Not really. There is challenge and how you rise to that challenge, whether you accept that challenge, and then how that transforms the way that you move through life. And we are then able to truly navigate that emotional landscape. And what I mean by that is the way you see the world is an emotional landscape that isn't really a reality. But if you can tune into that, life becomes a lot easier and you are guided greater. That intuitive voice becomes greater. You are more in your skin and able to receive the skin of the universe, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. All of these wonderful messages. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I went to an amazing um, conference, a seminar talk on the weekend on Saturday with Dr. Bruce Lipton, obviously godfather of epigenetics. Managed to meet him and we were talking about it.
Wow.
And he says the same thing, like Newtonian physics would tell us that the universe is matter and energy. Quantum physics tells us that the universe and everything in it, including us, is just energy. And essentially, we're all avatars. We're just living in illusion where we know this, right? In multidimensional consciousness, this is just one part of us having a human experience in a vast array of consciousness. But I think that while we're here, really honoring the body and being with the body and harmonizing with the body is so important. But it's so great with the work you do, I think, is it's such a wonderful reminder that we're never stuck, no matter how much we think we're stuck, that we can always step back into the flow of those rhythms and cycles and move through anything. So can you talk to us about some of your techniques and practices that you help people move through?
Sure. I mean, what came to me just there and as you were speaking was understanding, in the yoga world, they call this the meat suit. And I've always thought that's a bit harsh, I mean, yeah, it is a meat suit. But I kind of liken it to a guitar. If you know how to play your chords, which obviously run down the center of your body where all of those wonderful chakras lie, you are going to play a tune that attracts everything that you want into your life. And you can play that. You have the permission to play whatever song you want. But again, you've got to understand your vibration. And for me, movement has been one of my greatest tools, just to move the body and understand what potential you have in that movement. Again, I love stories. I learn a lot from stories. And when I was out in Miami, I was studying MMA, and we was learning mobility. But this mobility, the physical mobility, is so beautiful. You learn your shoulder rolls. You learn this communication of movement, and a lot like a word where you've got individual letters. The way you move your leg is a letter into another letter into another letter. And I remember we done a day of training and we was in the warehouse, and at the end of the day you have to move across the floor learning everything that you've learned. And I remember getting down and seeing my teacher and really wanting to impress my teacher and thinking, if I don't do this correctly, good girl came out, if I don't do this correctly, everyone's going to hate me. I'm going to be rejected. My teacher's going to think, oh, I'm just so rubbish, and then blah, 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 blah. And so I moved across the floor, moving lesser than what I could have done because I didn't want to get it wrong. And when I got to the other end, I was disappointed with myself, because if I had fallen, I would have learned something far greater. And that for me is understanding, when you challenge the body, when you think you've got something wrong, you've actually got something so right. You've got it so right. And so when we talk about tools, I mean, for me, I love bioenergetics, that creation of charge within the body, because a lot of time people don't know how they're feeling. And it's true, isn't it? We're so attuned to, how are you? I'm fine. I'm good.
Yeah.
Very succinct, very simple words. Because if we opened up that door, who knows what's going to fly out?
Yeah.
And so using bioenergetics is where you push against the ground or a wall or something incredibly sturdy, using a specific way of breathing, and you start to get this tremor. And some of you might feel this way. If you're into your workouts where you're lifting, you get that shake. It's a lot like that. But what happens in bioenergetics is you continue to move, and the emotion starts to come up. You start to feel this emotion, but you keep on moving until that emotion is basically broken down, and you can release the true emotion that is meant to come out. And then oh my goodness, the doorway to that next level is presented to you. So that's one of my tools that I love. But just simply going for a walk barefoot in the morning, feet on the grass, in and amongst the trees, just dancing round, without any expectation or judgment. I mean, my husband doesn't like coming for a walk for me in the morning because it generally ends up with me in the park just dancing around without my shoes on. And I and because it's so early, I am in my pajamas. He's like, oh my God, here comes the crazy lady. But I've literally shed all of that judgment and expectation. And if anyone wants to join me, they're so welcome.
So
Because
liberating.
what a way to start the day. I mean, I have threatened my husband that I will take my clothes off one day, and he is definitely not going to be there when that happens.
I love it.
But
And your t-shirt says it all, doesn't it?
yeah,
The wild woman.
but it's there are so many tools. There are so many things that you can do, but the simplest of ones is to actually touch your skin. If I think about it here and now, like what can you do right now if you're listening to what we're talking about is how if I ask you to touch your skin, how do you do it? And I do this in a lot of my teachings is, people will go, yeah, and it's all like this, and it's because we're so time consumed. Soft touch.
Mm.
How does that feel? Like
It's like, and it's like, haven't they done studies that if you hug yourself or you're hugged by another, the body can't tell the difference. You can give yourself a hug and your body, you will get the nourishment from yourself just as much as you would from hugging somebody else.
Absolutely. So how does this feel? What can you feel? What does it feel? What does the touch feel? And what does it feel like to be touched? All of this communication that comes up. And I love how you're holding this, Alexandra, because
Mm.
this is part of a move within my kinesiology practice at energy medicine, which works with the triple warmer, which is all about your stress. And we kind of bring the energy over, and then you end up in a hug here. So
Mm.
you can see there are points on the body where there is so much communication going on if you are communicating with it. Isn't
Mm.
that fascinating? It blows my mind what we can do for ourselves. And this perception of movement is so nuanced, isn't it? It means different things to different people, but movement is everything. And I say this a lot. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't feel that people are overwhelmed. I actually think they're underwhelmed because their body is not being included in this wonderful life. We are purely just using so much of this.
I think we've in recent years, especially, since the pandemic, I mean, I've written articles and spoken about this, like everybody is in or has been through some kind of trauma. And we've been really conditioned to be in overthinking mode, and we're in such an information society now, aren't we? I mean, we all have the phone and it's constant process, and we forget to just be with the body, be in the moment, move and connect with the joy of it. And it's so, I think we're coming into a time now as well. I know that as a healer, we do a lot of stuff on the subconscious, releasing subconscious beliefs and programs and reprogramming and things like that. But we're getting really into core layers like DNA, really subconscious, bodily held programs now. And the only way to shift them is to get into the movement, is to get into your body and move it through. And exactly as you said, like sometimes when I'm clearing energy, my body just naturally tremors and it just gets itself to that state. And then you can really feel the release. It's really powerful work. It's amazing.
You
I
know,
love how you put it as well.
what I'm really interested in at the moment, and I know you're going to get this, is the idea of moving for moving's sake, or moving, you're thinking more than you're moving. And as an example, you wake up in the morning, it's right. I'm going to be really positive today. I'm going to be so positive. This is the intention that I want. Da, da, da. But if you take the time to sit, and this happened to me a few days ago, I took the time to sit, and actually, there was this heaviness in my body, and it was the sound of. Uh, that's what it felt like, and it was in my heart. And when I used the Chinese wheel of the elements, And I know that that sound is in the water element, this moaning and groaning. And you can use the element wheel in three different directions. So I use this one direction where I was using the energy of earth because it controls the water. And so here I was singing. So I started to singing, and all of a sudden this energy starts to ripple through me. I'm like, yes. And then it transformed into laughing. And interestingly, from water controls fire, and the sound for fire is laughing. So I have now moved the energy around, and I was in that mindset. Now my mind and my body and my energy and my vibration are communicating from the same place, because we wonder why we come into conflict sometimes. You know, we're thinking so hard about being positive, but we forget about the emotion and the feeling that comes with it. And that all has to come into the alignment. And I like Abraham Hicks speaks about this so well. You know, the communication there is spoken so well, that you got to get into the feeling. How does this feel? What are you feeling? If it doesn't feel good, take some time out. You know, we can't, trying to think your way out of it isn't necessarily the greatest way of doing it.
Yeah,
Mm.
I know that. You know, because a lot of us go into fight or flight response, don't we? And then the mind, then you're not thinking straight when you're in that response
Mm.
anyway. And then the energy, the energy goes from the center of your body into your arms and legs when you go into that state. So moving through it is a really great way to move yourself out of that fight or flight response or any of those trauma responses.
Yeah.
Um, you were talking earlier about being in the summer. Can we talk a little bit about the seasons, like the seasonalities of life? How do you work with those?
Oh, I tell you, I love it. So we kicked off this year with which was the Project Woman weekend, which is now transformed even into the House of Human Movement. And this is where we opened the year, because it was spring. The energies that were arising, and the communication that comes from that. And so to come into this season of summer, you know, what does it feel like? What does summer feel like? And if we use all of the wisdom of our ancestors and of this planet, we see that this is the culmination of all of the hard work. And that's a bit like Dicey, the hard work, the intention, the clear intention, all of the actions that you have put into your spring, all of the intention that you put into your winter, where you dreamed what you wanted summer to be, and how you had cultivated the soil for that with restoration and nourishment. Really, when you look at what summer is, it's enjoyment, it is pleasure, it is gratitude. But we forget that, and we continue to be hard and to work hard, and we end up missing this most beautiful time where everything is so abundant and so receivable.
Mm.
And then we continue to move through being hard, working hard, doing hard. We don't change that emotional landscape. And we wonder why we then head into our December and that beginning of winter needing to have loads of parties and drink loads of alcohol, because we need something to slow us down. And alcohol is one of the greatest ways of doing that. It slows you down. And then we start the year feeling groggy and tired again.
Yeah.
So when I look at, I put a post out today, it's a double whammy of summer for me today, because I am now in my ovulation. I'm in my inner summer. And this is magnetism. This is where everything, like this conversation, is happening. It's meant to happen today because it is magnetized. We have created this time, pinpoint, sweet spot. I don't have to do, because I've done. Now I'm being. And it feels so good and so easy. You know, socially, I went for a run with my friend this morning, that beautiful on the beach. I'm having this conversation with you. I'm going to do some weights with my husband in it after we get off here. You know, I'm not forcing, I am just flowing. And you can see the impact that this has on your work, because your work communication, and for me, my work is my passion, really. I
You can
love,
tell.
thank you. The communication of the feminine, which has transformed my life, which isn't about being a woman,
Mm,
because we know that the feminine is in all genders. It is understanding how to harmonize that with the masculine and with the way that we are living our lives. And so when you look at your work, how are you communicating now in summer? Did you lay the foundation in the winter and the spring to be in this point now where it is just about sharing the passion and enjoying everything that you've done?
mm,
Or are you still really forcing and pushing and doing? Really interesting, because when we look at the cycles of life, we realize that there has to be elements of give,
mm,
elements of surrender and letting go, so that we can come back with full power. And this is why we see what I believe, this conflict for those humans that have wombs, whether you're a woman or a female, a human with a womb, why we experience this conflict at menopause, because the stress has literally wrung out all of the fuel that you have. And I love it when, there are tribes out there, they don't even have a word for menopause.
yeah.
It just literally happens, and there's
It's
no conflict.
metamorphosis, isn't it? It's a metamorphosis. I find as well, as you're talking, just the word celebration keeps coming in. Celebration, 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 celebration. And I think you're absolutely bang on. How often do we take the time to just be and to celebrate all we've achieved, and like to, let yourself have the time off to transform into that next step, but to look back on all that you've done and let the gifts flow to you then, rather than it. That's the feminine, isn't it? Open, drawing in, allowing, receiving, celebrating.
Yeah. And what you will know, what will you will feel if you miss this wonderful opportunity of celebration within your summer, how the conflict of autumn, and more so the inner autumn. So we speak of the seasons within the menstrual cycle. Your bleed is your inner winter, your mid follicular is your inner spring, your ovulation is your inner summer, and then your latter luteal is your inner autumn. And what I have found, so I come from an incredibly loving family, but there was domestic abuse growing up, and the the trauma from that created a communication of my stress response, which shows up in my inner autumn. And this is the PMS, this is the PDSD side of things. And if you do not give yourself the celebration of summer and you keep pushing, 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 you will see that this communication will come into that PMS expression, because you're running on empty. You are, let me find this vibration. You are tuning out of yourself. You are still people pleasing. You are still fueling whatever trauma that happened in this time, when this is all about you being in that zone of reflection, of just acceptance, of allowing for you to understand that right now, what worked, what didn't, what do I not want to continue carrying. This is that wonderful time of the inner autumn. And I found, whoo, when I learned about this within my menstruality, this was the conflict. I found it so bizarre, because autumn for me is one of it's my favorite season. The magic that occurs for me in autumn is profound, and yet my inner autumn, there was so much conflict there. But when I really sat in that, and this is the fear around PMS, isn't it? To be able to sit in that emotion and to express it, to express the trauma, to express, and I can feel that it feels a bit like this. You just want to pull it all off. That's what that felt like to me. But to be able to do that can be quite fearful, and I appreciate that. And that's why creating these wonderful spaces to explore that is so important to me, because again, I come back to communication. It is communication with yourself, with others, with life. that create the relationships that you need, deserve, and desire to live this life, that enables you to move through it. Oh,
So beautiful. I love the way, Abby, I love the passion that you talk about all of this with. It's just so lovely. I really want to come to the fulfilling relationships element here. Now, obviously, we've been through a time on the planet where we were all separated, we're all divided, we're all kind of pulled apart. How do you work with people to help them achieve more fulfilling relationships in their life? What are your kind of key components, I suppose?
well, you've got to feel settled in your own home, haven't you? And this is your home. When we look at, especially from my generation and the generation before that, we was never given the opportunity to explore this. It had to fit into society. And when I look at growing up, I was born in the 80s, and man went to work, being in that heterosexual relationship. I saw man goes to work, woman looks after child, woman doesn't have much else in terms of choices there. I mean, what my mum and my nan, incredibly powerful people, but there was a lot of anger there. That was what fueled them. With my stepdad, again, emotional conflict going on there. There was so much in terms. There's two people that loved themselves so much, but the emotional conflict is what pushed them so far apart. And for me, for people to have the space to sit in their bodies and to feel what they feel like, so simple and yet so transformational. And when I learned personally about the psychology of the chakras, that was what enabled me to really process childhood on all levels, not just what went on in my own home, but what went on in society and on a universal level. Being able to feel and to climb that emotional ladder was profound. I could articulate my emotions that I had stored in my body, and I was able to express them, so that I now sit here before you, and my mum, my stepdad, my biological dad, I love them so much. I love them so much, and I know that what they was going through, they had none of this.
Mm.
They was trying their hardest to sort out that shitstorm, and there was nothing like this there for them. So oh my goodness, I'm tingling over, because I love them so much. And if I continue to blame them, I remain the victim. I don't want to be a victim, and I don't want to pass it on to my children either. So holding these wonderful weekends that I hold in spring, and I hold in September. I have the autumn immersion coming up on the 27th of September, which is where men and women and non-binary can come, couples can come, and we are going to step into what I call the dark side of the feminine, the female cycle, which is about creativity and nourishment and rest, and going deep underneath your skin to feel where your power is, so you can harvest. This is such an important word, to harvest everything that you have created, so that when we step into not January, but spring of 2025, you are going to erupt and rise up like an energetic force you have never felt before. And you're going to be able to do that with the relationships that you hold dear. And that for me is just so wonderful.
I think that's magical, and I love that couples can come as well and work on themselves and their relationship and their communication, and just it's like full reconnection, isn't it, to themselves, each other.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I am, I founded Project Woman 5 years ago, and a lot of meditation this year and just listening allowed me to see that Project Woman was simply speaking to women, and that's not a bad thing. I am a woman, I resonate as a woman, and I love my woman. But if we really want to embark upon this wonderful adventure of change and transformation, we have to speak to everyone. And I welcome my brothers into this conversation. You know, I find it so exciting and refreshing when I hear of men, especially in the corporate workplace, wanting to understand about menopause, wanting to understand how they can help with menstruality. That is amazing. And this is where the change lies. It's not just with women, females and humans with women. This is everyone. This is everyone.
Yeah, I feel, and I really feel at this time, men are needing our help. You know, a lot of women have kind of gone through massive, those of us doing the work, gone through huge shifts and changes and moved into our power again and are reclaiming our space. But that in many ways, where is that leaving the men? I think the men then need our support and our permission to step up now and to step into their divine masculine more and more. And if we don't hold spaces for them, there's great men holding men's circles, but it's wonderful, it's so powerful to work with the male female dynamic, the masculine feminine dynamic in
Absolutely.
relationship, isn't it? I
Yeah.
love that. Beautiful, beautiful. You got the call, didn't you? You got the call. Amazing. I love it. Is there anything else that you want to discuss or talk about, Abby? What about where we're at on the planet right now? What's your take on all?
You know, I remember when Trump came into power, you know, the very first time, and everyone was like, oh, oh my God, we're heading into an absolute decline. And then someone said to me, and it was so profound. And they said it in such a gentle way that they nearly took me to my knees. If we are wanting to change, if we are wanting to shift from this dynamic that isn't working for the human race and for the planet, this has to be seen fully. It has to be fully illuminated for everyone to be aware of it. And then that all has to start breaking down. And we can see this in our government. They're not working. It's not working. You know, you look at what's happening in England and it's farcical, to be fair. But
Yeah.
this has to happen. This has to decline and fall apart so that we can then make these changes, these wonderful changes that are so necessary. But you can't, and this, you know, I saw this growing up. Conflict doesn't change conflict. It just makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you see wars. Yeah, we can see this happening. It has to break down. And from the rubble rises up that little flower, doesn't it? You know? And then that flower turns into a meadow. And you know, these this is it's not woo-woo and esoteric. It is when you look at how nature communicates, this is how we evolve. It's a gentle process, isn't it? That allows everyone to come in because it's not scary. Gentle opens the door for everyone. Everyone can come in and be part of it. And so for me, it can feel scary. It can feel scary. But we have to go through this process so that we can come out of it the other side. And this is why it's so important to be part of these communities, such as with yourself, Alexandra, such as with the House of Human Movement, such as with me. You know, don't be afraid to put yourself in those zones that you haven't been in before. Don't be afraid to make an effort. Effort is so important. And COVID has seen how effort has become almost too much for some people, and how that is, you know, how we can miss so much of life when we don't make just the smallest of efforts to be with people, to be outside with people. You know, did that answer your question, Alexandra? Because I felt I went off on a bit of a downer there.
Beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. Do you know, I'm writing an article for my online magazine, Alchemistic, and I'm actually writing an article mainly because I see myself as my own guinea pig, and I'm finding that the energy on the planet is shifting so much that we're all becoming so psychic and so telepathic, even without realizing that we are. And we've always been this way, but we've been so conditioned to not notice it and to ignore it. And one of the ways we learn as humans, and this is why the importance of community and being around those that are of like mind and like heart, is that we pick up so much in the subliminal subconscious space, more than we even know. We learn by osmosis. And there's scientific studies that have been done on this. You know, we have mirror neurons going on in our brains. We have all kinds of things happening. We have, you know, even in the law of quantum physics, if you have two frequencies that are operating at the same time and the same dynamic and the same, they will come together and create a bigger frequency. Now, that could be a frequency of love, or it could be a frequency of conflict, warfare, whatever is like will attract like. So, the vital importance of us remaining in our hearts and remaining in a space of love. And that doesn't mean to suppress what's going on. You know, we have to bring things up, turn them over, work with our shadow, heal, so that we can attract more love, so that we can, you know, but the more that we can come together in community and be around people that resonate with us, the bigger that energy becomes. And we're all connected in the oneness of the divine. And it is scientifically proven. This is what really blows my mind, is that the scientists are catching up with what the mystics and the healers have always known. And now we have unbelievable, irrefutable evidence of that. So I think it is, you know, the practices that you, the spaces that you hold and the practices that you gift to your clients and the world around you are so beneficial. And the more of us that are doing this work, the better. I think that, you know, there's been a little bit of I've noticed a little bit of a backlash against spirituality. And I've seen a lot of healers feeling a little bit, what's the word? Um, Kind of maybe a bit jaded with this spiritual industry, you know, because it's like everyone's jumping on the wellness bandwagon now. And but this is a good thing, right? It's a ripple effect. It's happening because it's necessary and it's needed. And no two-way showers are the same. So we're all going to be covering similar topics and doing similar thing because this knowledge is for everybody. It's meant to be for everybody. And it's all coming out. And I do see it shifting. I see people kind of waking up and, like you said, looking at the governments and going, what the hell? Like, honestly, don't accept that. And I think Pam Gregory says it beautifully, you know, just, you know, stay away from the news, just create a beautiful world in your own space, come home to yourself, you know, and we're all doing this. Like, it can be so hard not to get pulled into all the conflict and the violence. And that's part of the agenda, isn't it? To get us in fear, to keep us in that mindset. But if we, you know, we do this peaceful kind of protest, which is, I'm just going to switch that off. I have power. I can turn off the TV. I can walk away from that conversation. I can say, not today, thank you, and come back into my heart and hold a resonance of love and peace. And you know, I do think it's tricky when you're with your family and they're not quite on that same page, but we're here as way showers and we're here to help them.
Absolutely. Do you know what, Alexandra? Just before we pass our conversation over, you said about the healers feeling the strain of this, and I think for the healers, this is, you know, coming back to that emotional landscape. This really is when you feel like that. This really is an opportunity for you to nourish yourself. You know, it's so important. We can get very caught up with the giving of others, the the external and the inner summer, the archetype of the great mother, where you are constantly holding space for people. But remember, your space needs that as well. You need that yourself. Who are you? Who are you allowing to hold space for you? And I've seen it a lot of time, and I've done it myself. You think that you do it all, you can do it all, you can keep it all together. I don't need anyone. I don't have time, or I need to be doing this. Remember, everything's a communication. And when that emotional response comes in, now I believe that really is an opportunity for you to seek out your pillar of strength and for you to have that time of nourishment. It's so important, isn't it?
So true. I will tell our viewers as well. Abby and I had this interview booked in months ago, didn't we? And I think I've left you a message going, I'm in total overwhelm and I need to take space for me. And I think that you were quite grateful for it as well, weren't you? And I think that's so important. You know, we do need that space and time to hold ourselves and allow ourselves to integrate the work we're doing, because we have to walk through, every initiation that we're helping others through, usually before we have to hold space for them. So
Absolutely.
yeah, beautifully put, Abby. So how can people get hold of you, my love? Let's tell them about your events and everything you've got coming up and how they can work with you.
Certainly. Well, I'll give all of my social media and my email address, which Alexandra will share with you.
And
I
pop them.
have I have on the 4th of July, I have my summer seasonality session at the Ministry Private Members Club in London. This is about the communication of your emotions and the impact that has on the way that you work. This is a beautiful session. I mean, it's in the ministry as well. It's a great space where you've got a beautiful lunch, you've got the opportunity to co-work, you can chill out after. I will be there with Rebecca Brown of M Powder to discuss these cycles and these layers that we've spoken about in this conversation. And then in August, I will be at the Ritz-Carlton in the Maldives for their retreat, their summer renewal retreat, which is a week's retreat. Although I don't like to call them retreats, I like to call them experiences.
Mm.
And then I have my autumn immersion, that wonderful deep dive into harvesting and the dark side of the feminine on the 27th of September, and that's in Cornwall. Um, you are so welcome. You are so welcome.
Beautiful, so beautiful. I want to come to the Maldives. That's pretty good. That sounds up my
You are
street.
so welcome. You are so
Amazing.
welcome.
Oh, well, guys, I'll put all the links below so that you can access everything that Abby's offering. And I really love you. I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm, and I love how just real you are, Abs. Like you say it like it is. You show up. You're just so present with it all, and this is it, isn't it? I think the authenticity is just walking our talk, speaking our truth, honoring ourselves. I think so many of us are letting go of the inner people pleaser and the inner perfectionist and all those aspects. And I think you even said the good girl came out at the beginning of the interview, and I know that one very well. The good girl. Oh, the poor
I,
good girl. She's always trying to do the right thing.
I know.
Um,
I know. She's always there, but she's just nourished. All she wants is acknowledgement and nourishment. That's it. And she won't bark so loudly. And if you're a coach, remember, if you're someone that is in education, you know, if you are running yourself ragged, people feel that. That is communicated. They can sense it. And this is what I'm saying about it having an impact on your work. People can feel your vibration. This is not woo-woo stuff anymore. This is real. So if you are pushing yourself to the limit, if you are draining yourself of all your natural resources, people can see, feel, smell it, taste it, and touch it.
we have to do our due diligence. 2022, I took pretty much a year off from seeing clients, pretty much a
Mm,
whole year, um, to go on a deep dive into my own. I'd been through a huge intellectual property court case, which I won't dive into, but I ended up with post-traumatic stress, and there is no way I could have held space really for others. And to me, it is all about really that responsibility is a big responsibility, and to make sure that our energy fields are clear and that we are in the best space. Healer, heal thyself. It is the mantra, and we
mhm.
must always make sure that we're of the right energy, and our energy fields running clear, and that we feel strong and capable so that we can hold that space for others. Otherwise, there's too much. There's interference that can come in. There's all kinds of things that can happen, and so honoring yourself 100%. And I think for anyone watching, it is okay to say no. It's okay to say no and not right now. And as Abby and I said, we rescheduled the interview, and today the energy is amazing. I feel great. You look great. Everything's great.
Come
Boom.
on. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous. Amazing. Well, listen, wild woman, it's been so incredible to talk to you. Are there any parting words, Abby?
Any passing words? Just be. It really is that simple, isn't it? Just be and be you. That's it. That's what you was born to do.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, my beautiful friend.
Mwah.
Been amazing to talk to you. And thank you for everybody for joining us on the Alexandra Wenman Show. And please like, comment, share, and do get in touch with Abby if you resonate with her work. And I wish you a beautiful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.